Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shrimad His Divine Grace Abhay Charana Ravind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shrimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. समवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय. जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. विष्णु पदाय कृष्ण विस्तार वरलक्ष्मी जपता सोनतलम नमाचरि पदानि ताय कपपदानि गौर कतदंते क्रम धरणे. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So today we are going to discuss on a special topic on 5th canto, Vedic Cosmology. Srila Prabhupada in morning walks, if you see, there are some topics which Prabhupada would discuss often, especially in morning walks, like life comes from life. Prabhupada would prod his disciples to take the position of materialistic people, especially with an atheistic mentality, to put forth arguments, and Prabhupada would give answers or counter-arguments supporting the Vedic version. So life comes from life is one topic you will see Prabhupada discusses about very often in morning walks. Another topic is about evolution, theory of evolution. Prabhupada would talk about that. Prabhupada would also counter-arguing against the theory of evolution, the modern understanding of creation. Prabhupada would also discuss about the creation of the universe. So, Srila Prabhupada, if you see, there are many conversations which Prabhupada had even in Bombay, having with all his scholarly disciples, and Prabhupada said to them, you please go through the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and try to understand it, and you create this huge temple of Vedic planetarium. And Prabhupada says, if we can create this model according to the Vedic version, the planetarium, then Prabhupada says that will be a good propaganda of Krishna consciousness. So any modern man would come, they would look at the whole model and they would understand. So this was Prabhupada's vision for TVVP, and as we know, TVVP is slowly getting materialized, and soon, in another couple of years, the model would be ready for all of us to see. So I remember when I joined the temple, initially when we were discussing 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in the morning classes, I remember me and Sriman Narasimha Prabhu would spend a lot of time discussing, trying to understand. Even sometimes our discussion would go late into the nights. And the more we discussed, the more we got confused also. Then we came across videos on this particular topic of Vedic cosmology by Dhanaviri Goswami Maharaj. Maharaj had done a lot of work, a lot of research on this. He has written quite a few books also on that. Sadaputta Prabhu's lecture he has also done, and there are many, even second generation devotees who have done presentations, who have done seminars on this interesting topic on the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, the idea of studying about the structure of the universe is given in Srimad Bhagavatam itself. There are 10 topics that are discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, Atra Sarga Visargascha Sthanam Poshanam Yuteyaha Manvantara Ishanukata Nirodha Muktirashrayaha. Atra Sarga, Sarga is the primary creation. Visarga, secondary creation by Lord Brahma. Sthanam, the third topic is about a planetary system. Poshanam, protection by the Lord. Yutayaha, creative impetus. Manvantara, change of Manus. Manvantara Ishanukata, Prabhupada translates that as signs of God or Krishna Kata. Nirodha, going back home. Mukti, liberation. Ashrayaha, the ultimate shelter. Prabhupada translates that as the ultimate good or Samam Bonam. So these are the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, which Srila Sukadeva Goswami explains are listed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, these 10 topics, they are shared across all the 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. So you can't really single out one canto and say, this canto talks about this particular topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, one of the 10 topics. It's not like that. They touch on different topics, each of the cantos, but in some canto you will find it, some of the aspects of these 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam more prominent. So in that sense, 5th canto also discusses about protection of the Lord, so on. But 5th canto especially discusses in detail, very graphically, about the structure of the universe. So, what is the significance of this? What has this got anything to do with pure devotional service? The purpose why Shukadeva Goswami explains about Jai Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki Jai. So the purpose why Srila Shukadeva Goswami explains and goes into so much detail about the structure of the universe is simply to establish the fact how much Krishna loves us. Even though we have fought with him, we had so much envy in our heart, we came away from the spiritual world, away to enjoy away from Krishna. Nevertheless, Krishna, as a very loving father, he still makes wonderful arrangements for us to still correct ourselves so that we can qualify to go back to the spiritual world. So that was the purpose. If we study the more detail that you come across, you will understand how much pain and how much effort Krishna actually goes through simply to facilitate us to enjoy away from him and to come back to our senses. One other point which Shukadeva Goswami also stresses in each and every point, wherever he goes to whichever corner of the universe, you will see there will be some devotee worshipping some form of the Supreme Lord. Okay, from the covering, there are 8 shells. You will see even inside the shell of the universe, there are deities of the Lord. There are Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, worshipped by a certain personality, a presiding devotee there. So, Parikshit Maharaj was very curious to know how and why was the universe created in a certain way, and for what purpose did the Supreme Personality of Godhead establish Sthanam. He established the universe in the way it is. So, now before we go in, there is a disclaimer by Shukadeva Goswami himself. He says, it is impossible even for someone with the lifespan of Lord Brahma to fully explain about the structure of the universe. So, we can understand how less we are actually qualified to understand if that's the statement by Shukadeva Goswami himself. So he's saying it's practically impossible for anyone, even if one goes on to explain about the structure of the universe in great detail, it's impossible to, first of all, finish explaining, much more impossible to even understand for others. Nevertheless, Shukadeva Goswami, as I said, the sole purpose why Shukadeva Goswami is explaining the entire structure of the universe is to establish the fact that no matter whichever corner of the universe you go, Supreme Personality of Godhead is still there. He is still being worshipped by his adoring devotees. So that is the purpose. It also goes to show how much and to what extent, to what detail, Prabhupada would often say, attention to detail is a sign of love. To what detail Krishna actually goes simply to facilitate rebellious souls like us. So with that we can develop the appreciation how much more he would actually facilitate if we start to do devotional service to him. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan Ki Jai. So, with that intro, let's go on with this. I was thinking what's the best way to approach this topic. We'll go with some topics which are very familiar to us, which we had discussed already. And then we'll establish the context, and then we'll take little by little each of the different parts of the universe, study, and we'll come and fit it back in the bigger scheme of things, and we go to the next. So this way, I thought we won't lose context, and at the same time, we can also cover broadly, at least on a summary level, each of the different descriptions that are given in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, if you look at this topic of spiritual sky, we discussed about this on a very, very high level when we were discussing Chaitanya Charitamrita, the expansions of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, glories of Lord Nityananda Prabhu. So, this famous picture of a spiritual sky, you will see how the Supreme Lord Krishna, he is there playing with his Gopas and Gopi friends. So that is Golok Vrindavan. Below that we know Dwaraka, and then we were discussing about Ayodhya, so on and so forth, Chaturvyuha. Then you have Narayan, second Chaturvyuha. Then from Mahasankarshan comes each one of the different Vishnu avatars. The first avatar is Mahavishnu, and then Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Shirodakshay Vishnu, how unlimited universes come forth from the bodily pores of Mahavishnu. So this is something we are familiar. Now, this is the entire spiritual sky as well as the material world here. So that's what we are familiar with when we were discussing Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is what we were going through. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains each one of them on a very, very high level, but touching on the different aspects of Vishnu Tattva, touching on different avatars the Avatar Tattva also, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami touches. Now what is explained in 5th canto, as far as the context of this picture is concerned, is where you see this at the bottom of the picture as one universe. Okay, so 5th canto discusses about the structure of one such bubble that comes out of the body of Mahavishnu. So that's what 5th canto discusses about. So this is all we are going to discuss. So if you see this picture, so this is just a zoomed in version of the previous picture. So in this one universe, we were discussing before, there are 14 planetary systems. First we have Garbhodakshai Vishnu, who is there lying on Garbhodaka ocean. From his navel sprouts a lotus, and on top of it, Lord Brahma appeared. And along the stem of this universe are the 14 planetary systems. So we have discussed about this also before when we were discussing about the 22 avatars also. Very high level. We are in Bhuloka, 7th planetary system. Bhuvarloka, Swargaloka, Mahar, Janas, Tapas, Satya. We have above and then below Hatala, Vittala, Sutala, Talatala, Rasatala, Mahatala, Patala. So we have each one, or rather, Mahatala, Rasatala, Patala. So we have these 14 planetary systems. 5th canto especially discusses about these 14 planetary systems, and in that especially about this Bhumandala. We'll go to that shortly. But 5th canto is about just what is existing inside the universe. What we had discussed before was outside the universe, mostly. We didn't go much into the detail of what is actually happening inside the universe. 5th canto discusses about what is exactly happening within each universe, and especially in that Bhumandala. Now, just to give a bit of a background, if you remember Swayambhuva Manu, so this is just the outline of 5th canto. Swayambhuva Manu had 5 children, if you remember. They were Uttanapada. So this is Swayambhuva Manu. He had 5 children. So Swayambhuva Manu is one of the 14 Manus. Just to refresh our memory, there are 14 Manus in a day of Brahma, and we are currently in the reign of Vaivashvata Manu. So Swayambhuva Manu was the first Manu. He had 5 children, Uttanapada, Priyavrata. So Priyavrata, Uttanapada, then Akuti, Prashuti, and Devahuti. Devahuti's son is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Kapiladev. Uttanapada had 2 wives, Suniti and Suruchi. Suniti's son was Dhruva Maharaj. Now, Priyavrata was his eldest son. Priyavrata's spiritual master is Narada Muni. Priyavrata, because of the association he got from Srila Narada Muni, he chose not to take up to this path of kingship. Rather, he took up to full-time devotional service. He took instruction from Narada Muni. Narada Muni taught him to chant Hare Krishna. He gave up everything, went to the forest, and all day, all night, he was just spending his life simply chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Vedic times, usually the first son becomes the heir apparent, the next king. Now, because Priyavrata chose the path of full-time devotional service, Swayambhuva Manu handed over the reign to Uttanapada. Now, what was Swayambhuva Manu reigning? So, if you look at the previous picture, we have the 7th planetary system, which is Bhumandala, where it's mentioned Bhuloka, that whole mandala. Swayambhuva Manu was ruling the entire Bhumandala. The 7th planetary system completely was ruled by Swayambhuva Manu. Prabhupada says, we are descendants of Manu. That's why in Sanskrit, humans are called Manusha. Okay, so Swayambhuva Manu's sovereignty was in this entire Bhumandala. So, when Swayambhuva Manu wanted to retire to forest to take up Vanaprastha, at that time, he handed over the reign to Uttanapada. As I said, Priyavrata had already taken full-time devotional service, gave up kingship, went to the forest. So, Priyavrata was not available, so Swayambhuva Manu gave it to Uttanapada. Uttanapada's descendants started to continue to rule Bhumandala, the 7th planetary system. Before we go to the detail, I'm just giving you the background. So they were ruling. So from there all the way it came to Prachetas, everyone was ruling the entire Bhumandala. Prachetas were also ruling. Prachetas' son was Daksha. Now, without going into detail, Daksha was previously killed. So he gave up his body rather, and then he was born again. Now, When Daksha was born as one of the descendant of Uttanapada, instead of taking the kingship of the entire Bhumandala, Daksha, because of his previous memories, he thought, I'm going to go to forest, do tapasya, and reclaim back my lost powers. So he gave up kingship, he went to forest. Now there is a difference between why Priyavrata went to forest and Daksha went to forest. Priyavrata went to forest because he wanted to do bhakti yoga. Daksha went to forest. The very name Daksha means expert in sense gratification. Okay, he was also one of the Prajapati, but he's very expert in sense gratification. So when he was born again as son of Prachetas, he was thinking, I had so much more powers. I need to first claim that. Then I can enjoy so much. So he gave up everything. In other words, he didn't take up the responsibility. As a dutiful king, he gave it up, went to forest to do tapasya to reclaim back his powers. Now Swayambhu Manu, by then, he has finished half of his rule. Swayambhu Manu, if you remember, there are 14 Manus in a day of Brahma. There are 1000 Divya Yugas or 1000 Chatur Yugas in the day of Lord Brahma. 1000 divided by 14 Manus, which will come to about approximately 71 Divya Yuga. So, Swayambhu Manu, by the time Daksha was born and Daksha went to forest, Swayambhu Manu had finished 50% of his reign, which is about 35 and a half Divya Yuga or 35 and a half Chatur Yugas. So now, he had already, his first son had gone. Uttanapada's son, all of the other daughters he had married to each one of the different saintly personalities. They have all gone. Uttanapada's descendants were ruling, and suddenly it came to a point when Daksha dropped everything and he left. Now, responsibility came again on the lap of Swayambhu Manu. Now, Swayambhu Manu was thinking, my God, what will I do with Bhumandala? When we discuss about the structure of Bhumandala, you will understand the vastness of his kingdom. So, Swayambhu Manu was thinking, what should I do? So now he is left with no other option. So now he went and asked Priyavrata, please come back to the kingdom and rule, because this is the situation. Initially you wanted to go, I let you go, but the descendants of Uttanapada, they were ruling. However, with Daksha going to the forest, there is nobody to rule. People in Bhumandala, they need shelter. So now Priyavrata, he wasn't to be easily persuaded by Swayambhu Manu. He declines. He follows instruction of his Gurudev and he was following. So now, because it becomes a universal crisis now, there's one entire planetary system but no ruler. Brahma is worried. So when Priyavrata declines the proposal of Swayambhu Manu to come back to the kingdom to rule, at that time, Brahma, understanding the importance, he himself descends down. Now Brahma is his great-grandfather. So now Priyavrata then asks Brahma approaches Priyavrata and he tells him, you have to take it up. And he tells, you look at your spiritual master, Narada Muni, you look at your father, Swayambhu Manu, or even me. Actually, Brahma is his father, not great-grandfather. So, or rather, grandfather, not great-grandfather. Okay. So, Lord Brahma was grandfather of Priyavrata. So then Lord Brahma tells to Priyavrata that you look at me, we are all doing the duty that was ordained by the Supreme Lord. So at this point of time, the entire Bhumandala, it needs somebody's shelter, of a great king especially. So you please come forward and you take it up. And I bless you, rather than if for someone who has given up full-time service of just hearing and chanting, taking up earthly responsibilities, generally they may get carried away. But I bless you that your bhakti will only increase. So he blesses him that way. So then he takes the blessings of Narada Muni, he follows the etiquette and he says, all right, if that is the order of Lord Brahma himself, so be it. So now Priyavrata comes back and then he takes up the kingship of entire Bhumandala. Until that point, Bhumandala was just one vast tract of land. It's one planetary system. There was no division per se. Okay. Now that's why we are discussing the history here. Okay, so until Priyavrata's time, that was the story. So if we... That's the universe. There are 14 planetary systems. That is Bhumandala. It was just one single vast tract of land. Imagine it that way. Okay, so this is Bhumandala. So now Priyavrata was ruling very, very dutifully, and he kept the law and order so perfectly that if there are enemies in any other corner of the world, even existence, simply to bring peace in any place, all he has to do was just to twang his bow. And that would shatter the hearts of his enemies, and they'll just keep quiet. They'll behave properly. That's how powerful Priyavrata was. He was ruling Bhumandala for no less than 1.1 billion years. That's how long he was ruling. It's mentioned for 11 Arbudas. Arbuda is 100 million years. 11 times 100 million is 1100 million or 1.1 billion years. That's how long he was ruling. So Priyavrata, he was also married. So if you look at the descendants of Priyavrata. So Priyavrata was son of Swayambhu Manu, ruler of Bhumandala, and 1.1 million years, rather billion years. That's how long he ruled Bhumandala. So Priyavrata, he had two wives. One is Barismati. Barismati was daughter of Vishwakarma, the architect of demigods. So he married Barismati. He also had a second wife. Name is not given. So through Barismati, he begot 10 sons and one daughter. One daughter, her name was Urjaswati. She was married to Shukracharya. She is Devyani's mother. So Devyani was born for Shukracharya and Urjaswati. Now here, the 10 sons, they are all equal to their father in qualities and all have names of Agni. They are different names of Agni. Like Agnidra, it's quite prominent, but every other word, if you actually see, there is Agni there. So he had 10 sons. Of 10, 3 sons, they were brahmacharis. They didn't take up kingship and they went to the forest. They took Paramahamsa ashram. Paramahamsa ashram means they took sannyas. Okay, so 3 of them, they became Paramahamsas. So now Priyavrata was left with 7 sons. Elder one was Agnidra, and the names are given. Idmajiva, Yaknyabagu, Hiranyareta, Gritaprestha, Medatiti, Vitihotra. These are the 7 sons. So what would usually a king do? A king has this vast tract of land. He has 7 sons. So now, which is Bhumandala. And now Priyavrata was left with this task of dividing this somehow so that he can share the kingship to each one of his 7 different sons. Now, in order to do that, he had to first divide the whole tract of land, which is like one whole circular, like a disc you can think of. He wanted to divide this into 7 different parts in order to share it equally share it with 7 of his sons. So then he can retire and go back to forest and then continue from then on his path back to Godhead. Now, in order to do that, he came up with a brilliant idea of driving a one-wheeled chariot. Before we go to the discussion of chariot of sun, you will come across this, you might have come across how the sun god, he is traveling on a chariot that's driven by Arunadev, and there are so many sages, apsaras, they're all dancing or reciting mantras, glorification of Surya Narayan, so on and so forth. Sun god is also going around the entire Bhumandala, causing day, night and everything. He thought, well, sun god is going here, and whenever sun god goes there, this half of the Bhumandala experiences darkness. And opposite also true. When the sun god is here, then that half is experiencing darkness. So as a dutiful king for entire Bhumandala, he thought, okay, now I can achieve 2 outcomes by doing one activity. It's mentioned that he was such a great, powerful yogi, bhakti yogi, he just expanded himself into 2. You will see that in many places. Shaubari Muni doing it. You will see that in 3rd canto. Kardama Muni doing it, expands himself into so many different forms. Normally it's not possible, but whoever bestowed with that siddhi by the Supreme Lord, they can do. Now, Priyavrata siddhi is not ordinary siddhi, not one of the Ashta siddhis we come across. It's mentioned that the activity which Priyavrata did, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead can do. Nobody else can do. It's literally unparalleled. What Priyavrata did was, he expanded himself into 2. In one of his role, he is still continuing with his duties as a king. He is still staying in his kingdom, capital city. He is still taking care of his subjects and everything. The other expansion which he did, he replicated sun god himself. So he became the second sun. Normally, there is only one sun. Srila Prabhupada says, and the sun is the exact central point of this entire universe. But during the time of Priyavrata, in order to achieve two outcomes, which is he doesn't want darkness affecting his kingdom at all. So that was one. And second, he also wanted to divide his entire tract of land of Bhumandala. I'll go to the description of Bhumandala later. We are just going history here. Okay. So then, what Priyavrata did was, he then started driving 7 different chariots. It's mentioned. He also copying what sun god is doing. So sun god has this one long axle with only one single chariot, one single wheel rather, in the chariot, and he was going around, causing day and night in the entire Bhumandala. So what he was doing was, he took one other chariot, which is slightly smaller, and he went all around the Sumeru mountain. This is Sumeru, like the central pivot you can think. He went around, and as he was going around, he created one division that way. Then he took a second chariot, which is slightly longer. The axle was longer, and the thickness, it's mentioned, the thickness of the wheel was twice that of the first wheel. Then he went around, divided second. This way, he was taking 7 different chariots, and he divided the entire tract of land, which is Bhumandala, into 7 different divisions, 7 continents and 7 oceans. Not to be confused with what we have here in this planet of Earth. This is in a completely different dimension. When I show you some picture, you'll understand. For now, on a very high level, you understand, he just divided one single tract of Bhumandala, one single planetary system into 7 different parts. Basically, that's all he did. Okay? And then he shared it with each one of his sons. So the central one, he shared it with Agnidra, second one with this next son, third one, fourth one, so on and so forth. So this is what Priyavrata was doing. With this entire Bhumandala, this is how he had actually divided into different parts, and he gave each one of those different Dvipa, it's called, or the island, to one of his sons. So Agnidra, he was the ruler of the center one. Next is Idmajiva, next one, so on and so forth. Okay, so I'll tell you the aerial view. Initially, Bhumandala was just one single tract like that. But after division, it became like that, like a concentric circles. Island. Wherever his chariot wheel went around, it caused a track, it created trough, and that trough got filled with different liquids, and that's how the 7 oceans were filled. Okay, so this is how he created. So aerial view, if you actually see, so that's the central portion, next one, so on and so forth. So the centralmost island is what we called as Jambudvipa. Dvipa means island. So Jambudvipa is surrounded by ocean of salt water. You'll see that. So likewise you will see. Then next one is called the Plakshadvipa, Shalmalidvipa, Kushadvipa, Kraunchadvipa, Shakadvipa. You'll come across Pushkaradvipa. They are the 7 names of the 7 different islands. So this is how Priyavrata, he divided one single planetary system into 7 different parts, and then he gave kingship to each one of his sons. So first one is Agnidra, each one of them. Now the remaining 3 sons, as we said, they were brahmacharis, and later on they became sannyasis. And through his second wife, he begot 3 sons. Uttama, Tamasa, Raivata. Sounds familiar? They are also 3rd, 4th and 5th Manu. Swayambhuva, Swarochisha, Uttama, Tamasa, Raivata. So 3rd, 4th and 5th Manus are also the sons of Priyavrata. Okay, so that is these 3 Manus of 3rd, 4th and 5th Manvantaras respectively. So Priyavrata's position is very unique. His father is Manu, 3 of his sons are also Manus. So that is Priyavrata. Now this is Bhumandala. This is the description of what we just discussed here. So if you see, there is Garbhodaka ocean here. I'll come to that shortly. So this entire tract of land was one single piece, and then the central one is the Sumeru mountain. keeping that as the pivot, he started to drive 7 different chariot, one-wheeled chariot, all around. And then he formed these concentric circles, creating island. So the central one is island, followed by an ocean, then an island, an ocean, then island, ocean, so on and so forth. And the quality of the content of each one of these ocean also varies. Okay, salt water, then you have sugarcane juice, so on and so forth. Okay, liquor, yogurt, so on and so forth. Fresh water, okay, the one outside Pushkara Dvipa, like that. Okay, so 7 different islands, that is Dvipa. And Dvipa means that which is Bhumir Apa. Apa is water. Dvipa means that piece of land which is surrounded or which has water on both the sides. That's what it means. Anywhere you go, there will be water, both the sides. So that's Dvipa. Okay. So these 7 different tracts of lands, they are called the Dvipa. And this entire plane, this is called as Bhumandala. Okay, so that's what we see. They're just 2 different angles of the same picture. And this is aerial view of that. Okay, now Priyavrata, as I said, there are 7 sons. The son who took kingship of the centralmost island, his name is Agnidra. Now Agnidra had 9 sons. Okay, what did Priyavrata do? Priyavrata had one single tract of land which he divided into 7 different parts. I'm bad in drawing. So Priyavrata had one single tract of land which he divided into 7 different continents and oceans. Central one, he gave it to Agnidra. Now Agnidra had 9 sons. Just like how Priyavrata, he divided 1 into 7 to give it to 7 of his sons. So similarly, Agnidra had 9 sons. He took the centralmost island, which is Jambudvipa, and then he divided that into 9 parts called Varshas. So that is Varsha. One such island of one such partition or part of that central island, one such Varsha is Bharatvarsha. Okay, so that's what Agnidra did. So if you look at this slide, it says there are 9 sons for Agnidra: Nabi, Kimpurusha, Harivarsha, Ilavarta, Ramyaka, Hiranmaya, Kuru, Bhadrashva and Ketumala. These are the names of the different sons of Agnidra. So the centralmost island, which is called Jambudvipa, Agnidra was the ruler. He had 9 sons and he divided the centralmost into 9 different parts. Like that. So, and each one of them is called Varsha. And he named each one of the Varsha he named each one of the Varsha after the names of each one of his sons. So, Nabi, that is called Ajanaba Varsha. Then we have Kimpurusha Varsha, Hari Varsha, Ilavarta Varsha, Ramyaka Varsha, so on and so forth. So each one of the 9 Varshas of Jambudvipa, they are named after each one of his 9 sons. So that's Agnidra. Now, this Nabi or Ajanaba Varsha, that is of interest to us because our globe is there. So what we have done here is, there is one single tract. From there were concentric circles. We have taken the centralmost one, and this is the centralmost Dvipa called Jambudvipa. Jambudvipa we divided into 9 different parts. The southernmost part of that is called Bharatavarsha. Now Bharatavarsha was formerly called as Ajanaba Varsha. So that is ruled by Nabi. So Nabi, when he was ruling, he then married daughter of Meru, called Meru Devi. And then for son of, or rather, Nabi and Meru Devi, they were blessed with Supreme Personality of Godhead himself as their son. So that was Rishabdev. Rishabdev in turn had 100 sons. Eldest son is Bharata. Now Bharata was such a great illustrious king that the entire Varsha, which until that point was called as Ajanaba Varsha, in the name of his in the name of his grandfather, was renamed as Bharata Varsha when King Bharata was ruling. So this is the same Bharata that we come across, one who thought about deer, and at the end of his life, when he was quitting his body, next life he became deer. Then next life he became Jada Bharat, and after 3 births he went back to spiritual world. So that's this Bharata. So when we call Bharata Varsha, you come across this term very often. These days it's Bharata Varsha means everyone is saying only India. But that Bharata Varsha, Bharata came from Rishabdev's eldest son. So Bharata, after he finished ruling, he then gave up his kingdom. He went to the forest, and we know the story, what happened after that. Now when King Bharata, he gave up the kingship, then 9 of his younger brothers, who were Kshatriyas, they took up the kingship of each one of the different Varshas there also. And then it went on from that point. So when Bharat Maharaj was ruling, the Varsha was called as Bharat Varsha. When Bharat Maharaj gave up the kingship, at that time what happened was Bharata Varsha was in turn divided into 9 different parts called Kanda. Okay, so that was shared by each one of his 9 Kshatriya younger brothers. So that is how from one single Bhumandala, it was divided into 7 different parts. One such part then came to be divided into 9 different parts. One of those 9 parts then came to be divided into 9 different parts again. One such part is where our globe is. So I'll redraw this again. Repetition is the mother of learning. Otherwise, it's very easy to get lost in the detail. I'm trying to simplify it as much as possible. Let's see how much I succeed. That's the universe. That was one single tract of land. That was divided into, so this is how it was originally. Priyavrata, then divided this into, this is only Bhumandala, I'm not drawing the globe, or rather the universe. Priyavrata then divided each one of them into 9 dvipas. The centralmost dvipa, or the island, is called Jambudvipa. And Jambudvipa was ruled by king called Agnidra, who was one of the sons, sorry, not 9 dvipas, I'm sorry, 7. So, one single tract of land, Priyavrata then divided into 7 different dvipas. Centralmost dvipa is called Jambudvipa, and that was ruled by king called Agnidra, who is one of his 7 sons. Agnidra in turn, so this is Jambudvipa. Now I'm going aerial view. This centralmost Jambudvipa, if you take it, Agnidra had 9 sons. So he divided this centralmost Dvipa, which is Jambudvipa, into 9 different sections or parts called Varshas. And the bottommost one, and he had 9 different sons, and each one of the 9 different sons took kingship of each one of the parts. He named each one of the Varsha after his sons. So the bottommost one, it was given to one of his sons called Nabi, and it was named Ajanaba Varsha. Nabi's son was Rishabdev. Rishabdev had 100 sons. The entire Ajanaba Varsha was given to Bharat Maharaj. So when Bharat Maharaj ruled it so well, the denizens of the higher planetary system, they started to call this particular Ajanaba Varsha as, this particular southernmost part, they started to call this as Bharata Varsha. Now after Bharat Maharaj, he ruled for so many millions years, then he gave up, he didn't hand it over to his sons, rather he gave up the kingship, he went to the forest. From there, we know the pastime. Bharat Maharaj becoming deer, then Jada Bharat, and then he went back to Godhead. Now, the kingship of this Bharata Varsha was then passed to 9 of his younger brothers. So when they took the kingship, I'm just going to expand this one. So this is the southernmost part. Okay, so this is Bharata Varsha. I've just made it bigger. So if you call this as Bharata Varsha, And then the kingship went to 9 of his younger brothers, who were Kshatriyas, as you can see. Rishabdev had 100 sons. One was Bharat Maharaj. Of the remaining 99, 9 became Kshatriyas. 9 are the Nava Yogendras. You will see in 11th canto. Karbajana Muni. You will see, so they are all Drumi, Drumila. Each one of them, they are all Nava Yogendras. They are all younger brothers of Bharat Maharaj. And then there were 81 Brahmanas. They engaged in karmic sacrifices. They were also doing yoga, but Mishra yoga. So then you have Yogendras, 9 Kshatriyas. These 9 Kshatriyas took the kingdom from Bharat Maharaj and they divided that Bharatavarsha into 9 different parts. Each one of the part is called as Kanda. So that Bharatavarsha in turn was divided into 9 different portions. And then again you go to the bottommost portion. That is called Bharata Kanda. Our circular globe is right there. That's the context. Which means our circular globe is somewhere there. Our circular globe is somewhere there. Okay, the 9th division is our globe, our earth. So, this is how the context is actually laid out in 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam about position, sthanam, how we are established, how tiny we are. If you actually see, there's this, we may think this earth is so big, but earth is just a tiny speck in Bhumandala. Okay. Again, I repeat, we need to get familiarized with this. So, 14 planetary systems, 7th planetary system is Bhumandala. This is Bhumandala. Priyavrata divides this Bhumandala into 7 different continents and oceans called Dvipas. Each one of them, they were called by different names. When we come to that, we can go to that. Each one of the Dvipa, they are named based on either a tree or mountain. Like a Jambu Dvipa, it's coming from a Jambu tree. There is a name of a tree there, actually. Likewise, you will see Pushkara Dvipa. It's like a million petaled lotus. Pushkar is lotus. Like that, Pushkara Dvipa came from that. So each one of these islands, they got their name either from a tree or from a mountain. So the centermost portion, so Priyavrata divided the entire Bhumandala into 7 different islands. Centralmost island is called Jambudvipa. Priyavrata gave each one of the island to each one of his 7 sons. So Jambudvipa was given to Agnidra. Agnidra had 9 sons. He took Jambudvipa from there and then he divided Jambudvipa into 9 different sections called Varsha. And the one which is at the bottommost, southernmost tip, he gave it to one of his sons called Nabi. Nabi and each one of the Varshas were named after each one of his 9 sons. When Nabi was ruling this particular Varsha, which is one single portion of Jambudvipa, that place was called as Ajanaba Varsha. Later on, Nabi, he married Meru Devi, and then Rishabdev was born as his son, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So if you read 5.5, 5th canto, 5th chapter, you see the instructions of Rishabdev to each one of his sons, 100 sons. So Rishabdev had 100 sons. His eldest son is Bharat Maharaj. He asks all of his other remaining 99 sons to follow the instructions of Bharat Maharaj, and he hands over the kingship of this entire. Rishabdev doesn't divide, unlike his previous 2 descendants, if you see. So Rishabdev, he then hands over the kingship to his son Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj ruled it so efficiently, so much so that the southernmost tip, till that point when it was called as Ajanaba Varsha, then came to be known as Bharata Varsha. Bharat Maharaj, when he went to the forest, he handed over the reign to 9 of his younger brothers who were Kshatriyas. Now, they divided this, so one of the reasons also, as we were mentioning, why Priyavrata was dividing this was simply to make sure that people don't have to fight. It's a natural division, so they don't have to quarrel between each other. There is an island, and there is a equal width ocean that is actually surrounding that island. So everyone knows the boundary, natural boundary, so they can do. So these 9 Kshatriyas, who were 9 younger brothers of Bharat Maharaj, when they took kingship, of this Bharatvarsha, just to make sure that they rule efficiently without quarreling with each other, they came up with the boundaries. So Bharatvarsha in turn was divided into 9 different sections called Kanda. Southernmost tip, 9th island is called Bharatakanda. You will come across different terms also, like Sudarshana Dvipa, there is one name that's given. Kumarika Dvipa, that's also another. In some context, this place is also called as Bharatavarsha. So we have to understand it based on the context. So our position is Bharatavarshe, Bharatakande, Meroho, Dakshine, south of Meru, in Jambudvipa, in Bharatavarsha, Bharatakanda. This is our position. Okay, if you look at the coordinates, how do we identify where we are? This is how we are south of Meru, in Jambudvipa, in the southernmost Varsha, which is Bharatavarsha. In that, 9 divisions are there, 9 kandas. In that, southernmost kanda, southernmost tip is Bharatakanda. That position is the circular globe. Okay, if you're already confused, this is just a starter. Okay, so same thing. So if you look at this picture, you will see this is the 9 different, so this is Jambudvipa, the centralmost one, as we were discussing, and it has 9 different varshas. So you see Kuruvarsha, Hiranmaya, Ramyaka, Bhadrashva, Ilavrata, Ketumala, Harivarsha, Kimpurusha, Bharata. Except Bharata, each one of the other ones, if you actually see, they are all different sons of Agnidra. Okay, Bharatavarsha was later renamed, but originally it was Ajanaba Varsha, named after Nabi. So this is again a different view with Mount Sumeru. We haven't touched Mount Sumeru yet, but on a high level you can understand it. This is Jambudvipa, the centralmost island. This is just saltwater ocean. So this is also one tract of the chariot wheel, which Priyavrata was actually going around on, keeping Meru as the pivot. So he went around here. So this is the first smallest chariot that created this saltwater ocean. And you can see also in this context also, you can see Jambudvipa is, this is Jambudvipa, this is north. So you can see the coordinates there. So that's north and east. So again, the southernmost one, that is Bharatavarsha. Okay. This is again same thing, but a different view. We can come to the detail of this later. This is top of Mount Sumeru. I think I'll stop here. Any question on this? Yes?
The Bharatakanda, is there any other things, other planets, or is it just talk about it?
Okay, so Bharatakanda, which we actually discuss here, which is the southernmost, one of the 9 different divisions of Bharatavarsha. What's the question? Is that, okay, so question here is Earth, is that the only planet in this position, or are there others? Earth is the only planet. Okay, Earth is part of Jambudvipa, as we were discussing the division, and the last division is Earth. In fact, strictly speaking, now you can think, how can it be flat, but at the same time, Earth can just be there? Earth, according to Vedic version, if you take that as Earth, Earth is actually mounted on a mountain like that. So if you take this as North Pole, this as South Pole, beyond the South, below, this is how it's actually given, according to Vedic version. So at this point, Earth was actually, it's like a, what do they call? You know, they have this, like a holder that holds the golf ball. T. It's like a T. So there's something like that that's holding Earth at this point. Okay, so that's how the description is given. Any other question? Clear? Okay, so this is just the historical background, basically. I just connected that with the structure because that's how it's explained in 5th canto. Now from this point, what we are going to do is, we just introduced Sumeru. Sumeru is somewhere here in the middle. So next class, we'll actually discuss about Sumeru, and then we'll go to detail about Jambudvipa. Of all the other Varshas, even Shukadeva Goswami, he goes into detail discussing only Jambudvipa. Why? Because we are there. He discusses about only Bharatavarsha. Why? We are there. All the stories of Mahabharata, you know, different pastimes that you come across, when you study with this background, you will understand. Otherwise, many times it will be confusing. Like we were discussing, Sagar Maharaj, he asks his 60,000 sons to dig the ground to search for the sacrificial horse. Which one did they dig? Did they dig this one? Or this one? Or this one? Which one? Okay, or if you see, let us say, Vamanadev, he placed his third step on top of Bali Maharaj, and then he pushed him down to Sutala. Now, if that had happened on this earth, if he pushes him down, where will he come out on the other side? China or South America or something? Where? So, each one of those confusions will get resolved if we understand these basics. We'll come to that later, but this is the understanding that's actually given by, I forgot to mention, I also recently came across Bhagavata Cosmology by Bhaktivedanta Vidyapith. So they also gave a lot of minute details about, could be in terms of dimensions or could be in terms of reconciling each one of the, different pastimes that we come across. But when we try to think, it confuses us more like that. But the scriptures actually give detailed answers to all those confusions which we come across normally. If we think earth, which is the earth? Is it this one or below? Below this earth means then you go to the central crust only. Actually, if you study geography, but you don't see anything. There's no Patala Loka there. So which earth are we talking about? Patala Loka is below this. But our earth is just on top of, or if you like, earth is just part of Bhumandala, right there. But then below that, there is the 7 planetary systems. But the 7 planetary systems are also part of Bhumandala like that. And they are underground. So this tract of land that we see, it's not a thin slice of land. It is a thick slice of land. You understand that you take one pancake, you pile up 7 different pancakes. Now from first pancake, if I go down, I'm still inside the pancake only. You understand? That's exactly how the bottom 7 planetary systems, they are clubbed together, actually. So when Sagar Maharaj's sons, when they dug here, not planet Earth. Planet Earth was just a tiny, tiny speck. They didn't bother about, us. They didn't take us seriously. So they were digging here, everywhere. They were digging, that's how they were going to each one of the lower planetary system. That's why they are called as subterranean planet. Terrain is the land. Subterranean means like subway. It's under the land, but below the land. So this whole tract of land, which we call as Bhumandala, it's not just a thin slice that is holding each one of the different islands on top. That's just at the top in Bhumandala level. But below that, immediately right below that, there are 7 planetary systems that are stacked up. For that matter, you can treat each one of them as Bhumandala, but stacked up together, actually. And all of them are under the earth only. That's why there is no sun for them. Okay, celestial serpents, they are under the ground, they are giving them. Okay, so 7 planetary systems, we understand it. That's how scriptures actually explain. Subterranean planets means all of these 7 planetary systems below us, they are also in the earth, under the earth, like cavemen inside the earth. But that earth is not the same as globe. Globe is a tiny speck here. Okay, what we are talking as earth, there is this big Bhumandala, but then layers of similar Bhumandala below. But together. And there is no aeration, nothing, everything is under. Okay, it takes much more craftsmanship to be able to create a underground city. Maya Danavaki. That's how he created this. Okay, we'll go to that later when we come to subterranean planets. But for now, understand the context. Because one reason why this topic about cosmology scares us is there are way too many details. And it's very easy to lose the context. You don't need to remember the numbers, but at least we need to know what is Bharatavarsha. If somebody comes and asks you what is Bharatavarsha, you shouldn't say India. Okay, India is just one tiny country in this globe, which is already tiny speck. Okay, Bharatavarsha is Bhumandala, Jambudvipa, Bharatavarsha, Bharatakanta. Okay, so if you see Sankalpa Mantra, before we do Yagya or any Samskar, you will see. Actually. Okay, Bharatavarshe, Bharatakande, Meroho, Dakshine, like that it goes, each one of them. We'll go through Sankalpa Mantra. I'll display that and then you will see. Even for Yagya, when they invite demigods, they tell exact coordinates. Please come here. south of Meru, and in Bharatavarsha, Jambudvipa, and then in that south, come to here, and then come here, right here, and there also they'll tell a nearby river somewhere, Mare River or something. Exactly, 180 Falcon Street, I want you here. So, seriously, that's how when you do yagya or any samskar, if you read the Sankalpa mantra, at the start itself it will tell you exact coordinates where you are requesting the demigods or whoever who is the lord of the worship, they come down there and to accept the offering, like that. Okay, so application is everywhere, but we need to clearly understand this. Bhumandala is one layer, one planetary system. One division of that is Jambudvipa. It has 7 different dvipas also, named after either a tree or a mountain. Centermost to Jambudvipa, I'm repeating again, divided into 9 varshas. Southernmost varsha, which is Bharata Varsha, was in turn divided into 9 different kandas. Southernmost kanda is where our globe is. So we are tiny, 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 tiny. Very, very tiny here. So this is our position. Okay, so when we say Vamanadev, he placed his lotus feet on the head of Bali Maharaj and pushed him. He pushed him here, not here. It might have started there. It's given on the banks of Narmada, but from there he pushed him here, Atala Vitala Sutala, all the way there. Not inside the earth. Earth is like right there. He pushed him down in one of the stack. Understand? Likewise, Patala Loka, you will find serpents are there. They are right there. And this whole thing, they are Adisesha. When we say, that's where Adisesha is. And Adisesha in turn is supported by Vayu Kurma. That's a Kurma Dev. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is somewhere there. Okay, and the 8 directional elephants, they are also balancing, standing on top of Kurma. Kurma is supporting all of them, and they are balancing them like that. And you will find the elephants above also. Okay, so that's the detail. But many times we get mixed up. We confuse this elephant to that elephant, this kurma to our kurma. So different confusions come. Even same way of the hellish planets is right below the 14 planetary system there. That is where Yamaraj lives. That's where Samyamani is. But Samyamani, there is another Samyamani on top of here also. This is his heavenly resort for Yamaraj. This is his workplace. And both are called Samyamani. One that is in the hellish planets, one of the 28 hellish planets below the Patala Loka, that is also his Samyamani Puri. The one above Sumeru, there is another Samyamani there. So whenever he goes for a break, he goes there. Whenever he comes for office, he comes here. Okay, so there are some ambiguities, but then we get confused when we don't know. Like Earth, we take it we always think Earth means it's our planet. But in Vedic cosmology, Earth means entire Buloka, entire Bhumandala. That is Earth. In that, our position is so tiny. That's where we are. And the ocean that we are saying that is surrounding Jambudvipa has got nothing to do with the oceans that we have in our globe. Okay, we should not confuse that. Okay, when it's new, it can be confusing if it's not already. But slowly, as I said, repetition is the mother of learning. When we come to this again and again and again, slowly, then we'll familiarize ourselves. That's why initially I thought I'll finish this in one session. Then I realized it won't be useful even for me if I speak so fast. So I just stretched it. We'll see how many hour sessions. You have a question? Yeah. Mother Earth Prithvi means this entire Mumandala. That's Prithvi. Okay, it's not just this mother, this one. So question here is, when we say Mother Earth, which one are we talking? Just this one, planet Earth, or is this the whole Bhumandala? Whole Bhumandala is Prithvi. That is Mother Earth. First ruler of Bharata Kanda. There is no specific description that's given. Bhagavatam lists the name of 9 different brothers of Bharata, but it doesn't tell who exactly ruled it. Maybe there are so many other references. If you read the book Bhagavata Cosmology, it will tell you. Or even Dhanavir Maharaj, he also wrote a book called Purani Cosmology, giving references from different scriptures, different Puranas. So you may find some references there. Okay, we'll finish there. You have a question, bro? I expected that. Varahadev, which earth did he lift? Did he lift this circular globe or did he lift the whole Bhumandala? Varahadev lifted Bhumandala. This entire. That's what Varahadev lifted. I expected that. Thank you. Okay, we'll stop there. Enough for you to take it home, think about it, come back with more questions. I'll give time for questions. Devotees in Mayapur TV, Facebook, YouTube, if you have questions, feel free to email me. My email is Ghanashyam at ISKCON.com.au. I'll try to answer them in the following weeks, or I'll try to cover it as part of the presentation. I'll do one or the other. But take this, get confused, come back with more questions. Okay? We'll finish there. Just a quick announcement. Next Tuesday, on 23rd of June, we are celebrating Ratha Yatra in the temple room. So, those of you who would like to register for having Mahaprasad delivered in your home, there is still time. We already had, I lost the count, 600, 700 devotees registered already. So there is still time, but we'll close the registrations on coming Sunday. So who you know, or if you want to register, please don't delay. The address for that is https://iskcon.com.au/Mahaprasad. So Ratha Yatra is on 23rd of June. We'll see you again next week on Wednesday. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai, Samaveda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Shri Gaur Anitai ki jai, devotees in Mayapur TV, Facebook and YouTube ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bo, Vishnu Padaya Krishna Padaya Lakshmi Jai Padaya Sonam Chari Padaya Nitai Padaya Gaura Tam